Welcome to this explainer. Today we're unpacking a topic that is literally sitting at the kitchen table of almost every Gen X household right now. Picture this, you're 54. You've got a plan. That perfect plan we were all sold, right? You know the one. Work hard, keep your head down, grind away until you're 67, save every penny, and then finally you get to actually start living. You've run the numbers a million times, and deep down you're holding on to it because, well, you feel like you have to. But as we're going to see, the data and the reality on the ground are telling a very, very different story.
Okay, let's dive into this. Your body didn't sign the plan. And you know what? Neither did your company, and frankly, neither did reality. There's this quiet tension building for so many of us in Gen X right now. You can probably feel it when you wake up in the morning, even if you haven't really said it out loud yet. Something just kind of doesn't add up anymore. We keep telling ourselves just a few more years, but the odds are slowly stacking against that traditional timeline. We're waking up to the fact that this long-held, perfectly crafted retirement plan, it might not actually survive contact with reality. Section 1. The Broken Retirement Plan. We all absorbed our parents' lessons of sacrifice, working until the very end. But looking at the burnout we're facing today, it leads to a massive, absolutely crucial question. Can you afford not to retire early?
Let's look at Section 2, the loss of control. This is all about the unchosen exit.
Now, what's really interesting about this is the stark contrast between what feels safe and what's actually happening out there. We have the spreadsheet plan, working until 65 or 67. It sounds incredibly responsible to our financial advisors. But then, look at the reality. The data is crystal clear here. That perfect plan doesn't usually make it to 67.
The actual median retirement age for Gen X is closer to 62. I mean, let that sink in for a second, 62. And here's where it gets kind of uncomfortable. A lot of the folks who retired earlier than expected didn't actually choose it. It was chosen for them. You can't schedule a bad back at 59. You definitely can't plan for a profound burnout at 61. And there's no way to guarantee your role is still going to be there when your company decides to, restructure. Often, this early exit is just a polite HR meeting where eye contact fades and they start throwing around words like transition, realignment, or skills gap. Decades of experience and loyalty, they simply don't guarantee you get to dictate your own finish line anymore.
And part of the reason that finish line comes earlier than expected is the sheer physical toll. Gen X is aging differently than the generation before us. And, well, not necessarily in a good way. Just look at these outcomes tied to long-term stress. People born after 1970 are seeing much higher rates of cardiovascular disease, chronic stress conditions, and what researchers grimly call deaths of despair. We've literally spent decades operating in this low-grade survival mode, juggling insane deadlines, massive economic pressure, constant change. It's like carrying an anvil around every single day. The machine kept running, but man, the gears are grinding. Your body has been keeping score this entire time, and unfortunately, it doesn't negotiate the way a spreadsheet does. That physical strain brings us to Section 3, the double squeeze. If you're feeling completely drained, this is exactly why. I really want to direct your attention to how these responsibilities stack up because it completely validates your exhaustion. Right now, a massive chunk of Gen X is living squarely inside the sandwich generation. Look at the first layer. You're supporting aging parents who need extensive care and coordination. Layered right under that, you're helping your young adult kids find their footing in an incredibly expensive, uncertain world. And then at the very foundation, you are still working full-time, still expected to perform at absolute peak capacity. The data shows many Gen Xers are spending over 1,000 hours a year just on caregiving alone. That's not a side gig. That is a whole second life layered on top of your first one. Time and energy aren't infinite, and continuing to operate at maximum intensity like this, it might cost you way more physically and mentally than it ever gives back.
So why do we stay? That brings us to Section 4. The math illusion. These are the flawed assumptions keeping us trapped in the grind.
This is the number that keeps everyone trapped. $1.2 to $1.4 million, maybe even more. It feels like this immovable, giant threshold you absolutely have to cross before you're finally allowed to stop. But the key takeaway from our source material is that this massive, intimidating number is built on a fundamentally flawed assumption. It assumes that your peak spending, the amount of cash you're bleeding right this very second, will just continue indefinitely.
And this brilliantly illustrates how costs actually naturally evolve. During your peak earning years, you're at 100% of your expenses. But in real life, major expenses begin to naturally fall away after age 60.
mortgages get paid down or completely paid off, the kids finally become independent, work-related costs just, poof, disappear. You aren't commuting, you aren't structuring your whole life around a demanding job. Your actual monthly needs drop by 30 to 40%. We've been measuring our future with a ruler designed for our present, which makes that financial gap look way, way scarier than it actually is.
Which brings us to the most empowering part of our explainer today, Section 5, the third path. It's time to build a flexible bridge.
We really need to update our definitions here. When people hear retire early, they usually picture a hard, complete stop, right? No work, no structure, just dropping straight off a cliff. But for Gen X, early retirement is actually a transition. It's a bridge. Stepping away from high-pressure full-time work absolutely does not mean stepping away from your purpose. You have decades of experience, judgment, and perspective, and that stuff doesn't just evaporate when you leave a corporate job. You can leverage all of that for consulting, freelancing, or project-based roles, work that actually fits your life instead of entirely consuming it. This gives you flexible income to cover daily expenses, lets your investments keep growing, and creates a totally different, healthier kind of stability.
So, the crucial takeaway from all this data is simply this. It's about maximizing life over maximizing money. This third path is really about protecting your health, your time, and your energy while you still have control over them. It's stepping back before you're forced to. The goal was never to delay living until everything was perfectly secure on some spreadsheet. Which leaves us with this final profound question to consider today. When is enough actually enough? I want you to really truly think about that, because as we've seen, you have to answer that question before time makes the decision for you. Thank you so much for joining me in this explainer. Keep learning, keep questioning the plan, and I'll see you next time.